Hey, what's going on, faithful? Thanks for joining us this week on the Niners News Update. Today, we are going to be recapping the draft as well as talking about the most recent Niner news. So the draft, obviously, biggest thing to note here is the lack of the first round pick. To properly evaluate our draft, we won't really know until we get to see Trey Lance play probably at least one full season, maybe two, to know exactly how trading away our next several first round picks is going to work out for us. But we did have a pick in the second round, number 61 overall. And there was a lot of speculation on how we could go. Maybe receiver, maybe offensive line, maybe edge rusher. We did go edge rusher. And the more I thought about it, the more this move makes sense, as we're planning on getting rid of Dee Ford, as we've talked about on the show before. So we did need another edge rusher opposite of Bosa. So we got USC edge rusher Drake Jackson, who was one of the guys of many that we mentioned that the Niners could be looking at, and they did in fact go with him. He is 6'2", 254 pounds. So the Niners draft Drake Jackson to add to that, defensive line, where he'll be playing alongside Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, and Javon Kinlaw, we can assume. We can figure Kinlaw's probably going to be back from his knee injury. So definitely a player that can make the pretty impressive defense even better. So for their next pick, they kind of surprised some people by going with a running back, by going with Tyrion Davis-Price out of LSU. Obviously, he's quite a dynamic player and expected to be a really good addition for us. But, I mean, with Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson, definitely didn't expect us to go with a running back in the third round.
You know what it was? It's because his name was Tyrion, like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, the first thing that I heard when we drafted him, that was what I thought of. I was like, oh, okay, is that like Game of Thrones character? Because that's pretty cool. So I was pretty excited about that. But yeah, I mean, he obviously, anybody that watches Niners games knows that every season that Kyle has been Niners coach, we've run the ball extremely well, but we've gone through probably 3 or 4 different running backs. So definitely good to have depth at that position. And, he seemed like a good pickup. So really happy to bring him in. Receiver was another position that people talked about. We could address, especially with the unknown of the Deebo situation. So we addressed a receiver at 105 overall when we took SMU receiver Danny Gray.
Yeah, I mean, I think Deebo's likely going to be staying, I think, after the way things look now. But
absolutely. And we're going to get more to that in just a second with the latest on that, because I'm in agreement. It looks like things have drastically improved. But Danny Gray, another receiver under 6 foot, 5'11", 186. So really, really similar in size to Jahan Dotson, actually. I think Jahan Dotson, we said, was 5'11", 178. Mm-hmm. So about 8 pounds heavier, but about the same size. So he's a receiver under 6 foot, 5'11", 186, runs a 4.3 40 out of SMU. So expected to be another playmaker for the 49ers in what's expected to be more of a vertical passing game with Trey Lance this upcoming season. He's definitely a player that can go up and get contested throws as well. So good to see us add another receiver. That was something that, was always listed as a position of need that we could address, as was offensive line, which is how we went with our 134th pick when we took University of Texas San Antonio offensive tackle Spencer Burford, 134th overall. In the 5th round, they took a corner finally by drafting Toledo cornerback Samuel Womack, who ran a 4.39 40. and led his team in interceptions in 2021. So he is, he was on a lot of like preseason watch lists as one of the top corners at that position. Obviously playing at a smaller school like Toledo, probably didn't get as much attention as like a Sauce Gardner or Derek Stingley. But we knew the Niners were going to take a corner at some point in the draft. They didn't do it until the 5th round, but obviously I think we're okay at corner, especially with, Charvarius Ward. And we're going to talk about another guy that we signed here in a second, that we added to the cornerback room here. We also took another offensive lineman in, I'm probably going to butcher this, but Nick Zakelj.
That'd be my guess. That'd be my guess.
Yeah.
Zakelj.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
As we find out more on him, we'll bring that to you. But then we went defensive line at 220 overall by getting Kalia Davis, who I can only assume is a depth signing. Obviously, we played a large portion of last season without Javon Kinlaw, and now we don't have DJ Jones anymore. So adding him to our defensive line as a depth player, probably a good move. The Niners would get another corner by getting a teammate of Jahan Dotson, cornerback Tariq Castro Fields out of Penn State at 221 overall. And then with the final pick in the draft in the 7th round, the Niners Mr. Irrelevant. The Niners making a surprising move to take a quarterback. I really didn't expect them to take a quarterback, especially seeing as we have 3 quarterbacks on the roster right now with Jimmy, Trey, and Nate Sudfeld. So, but again, potentially a camp body, and it wouldn't be unheard of to carry a quarterback on the practice squad. But yeah, Brock Purdy, interesting to see what will become of him. He was elated. I don't know if you saw the Purdy household, but he was elated to be really? Mr. Irrelevant.
What's funny? I saw the ceremony where like they hold up the jersey that literally says Mr. And I'm like, really? They do that? Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I didn't see the celebration, but I remember seeing that part, and I was like, oh my God, they hold up the jersey with it on and everything. Like, oh man. I know I've seen it before, but just seeing it again, I'm like, oh my God.
I mean, he started 13 games as a senior at Iowa State. And he completed, this was good for 5th in the nation, 71.7% of his passes. So very accurate passer. So yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. I mean, obviously, I don't have great expectations, especially if we're going to keep Jimmy. But maybe he stays around on the practice squad. Maybe he can find a spot for himself. But yeah, as far as the draft goes, like I said, to be able to grade the draft is kind of inconclusive without knowing what's going to happen with Trey Lance. But we filled a lot of needs. I mean, like I said, Drake Jackson at edge rusher, I figure, is going to step in for the soon-to-be-departed D Ford. That just makes sense. We got another receiver, with the unknown of the Deebo situation. Plus, it doesn't hurt to have another receiver anyway. I mean, you can never have too many good receivers, and Danny Gray seems like he's good. We addressed 2 offensive linemen, 2 corners. So we filled a lot of positions of need. So, I mean, I'm happy with it. But like you said in the Commanders segment, really it's hard to know about these guys until you actually see them get on the field against NFL competition and see what they're made of.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't really matter how players rated. I mean, other than like I said before, like the 3, maybe a couple players that are almost for sure going to be good in the NFL. Outside of that, it's
there's always those guys coming in like an Andrew Luck or like a Peyton Manning or like a Myles Garrett that you just know that it's just gonna work out. Nick Bosa, another one that people just knew was going to be good. Yeah,
it's absolutely. Like they're clearly, you can just tell, like regardless of playing in the NFL yet or not.
Yeah,
it's almost a guaranteed bet, but those are rare. Most of the time that's not how the draft works. You could, your 6th round pick could come out and be one of your best players in your team come a year or two.
Yeah, I mean, Kittle is a 5th round pick.
That's a perfect example. Perfect example. because Kittle is a damn beast. So yeah,
I remember one time. Yeah, I remember one time they were asking Kyle Shanahan in an interview. They're like, "Well, would you think about taking a tight end? You know, like in the second round." This was after we already had Kittle, and he's like, "I don't know if I could really justify taking one in the second round when I got Kittle in the fifth." I was Kyle
Fair
just
point,
getting the ultimate
point.
value. Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, we also addressed, and this is why, probably not a huge deal. I'm sure John and Kyle already knew that they were going to make this move, but we re-signed him. I'm happy with this move. I know he's been banged up, but we got Jason Verrett back. I love Jason Verrett. Now, this guy,
He's been very solid, I feel like, for the Niners. Like, he's never been amazing, but like he's always been pretty solid.
Yeah. And I don't think I can find a player that comes to mind that's had a worse injury history than Jason Verrett. I mean, he missed the entire 2018 season. He signed with us in 2019, and he's only played in 15 games with the Niners, including 13 starts in 2020. He started the opening game last year against the Lions. He had 5 tackles. I think you probably remember. We lost Raheem and Jason Verrett both in the Lions game in the opener last year for the season, and that was a bummer.
I remember the times that he was in the game though, that he was good. Like he looked, he made good plays. Like
absolutely.
It wasn't a lot, but I imagine that's why they're re-signing him, because if he's getting healthy, then they see what he can do. Then give him a 1-year chance.
Yeah, and it's a relatively team-friendly contract. They're not paying him a lot of money, and I mean he's 30 years old. But I mean, this is a guy that's been a Pro Bowler before when he's been healthy, and like I said, he started 13 games in 2020, and he ended up having 60 tackles and 2 interceptions. So yeah, I mean, he definitely played well for us when he's been out there. He was playing well in the Lions game before he got injured last year. But he's had a couple of torn ACLs, and
I can't believe he's torn his ACL twice, man.
He's had knee injuries.
That's a risky player.
He's had ankle injuries. Yeah, I know. But I mean, obviously, Kyle and John like him a lot, and he was a great like when we went into last season with him and Emmanuel Mosley and K'Wan Williams. I was very confident in our corner group, but Jason Verrett went down game 1, and that forced Ambry Thomas and Diamador Lenore, our rookies, into a role that they probably weren't ready for. They had to start playing week 1. So, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's potential for it to be high risk, low risk, high reward is what I meant to say. Because obviously you're not paying him a lot of money. If he gets injured again, then, obviously we got Charvarius Ward. We drafted Samuel Womack and Tariq Castro. What was it? What's his name? Tariq Castro. He's got, it was Tariq Castro Fields. So we got 2 new corners in the draft. We've got Diamador Lenore. We've got Ambry Thomas. So we've got good players there. But if he works out and he stays healthy, I think he could be a starter. And then I figure probably Emmanuel Mosley and Charvarius Ward are our starters. I don't know if that would mean Jason Verrett would go to the slot because we don't have K'Wan Williams anymore. But, I mean, having too many good corners would be a welcome sight, because last year our secondary was our weakness on defense. We got burned a lot, as you probably remember.
That's probably why they picked up 2 corners in the draft, to make sure that
I would say so.
That shit doesn't happen again.
I would definitely say so. Now that was the only addition we made, was Jason Verrett. Also, Elijah Mitchell, in other news, told reporters last week that he recently had a cleanup procedure on his knee. Obviously, last year he was in and out of the lineup a lot with knee injuries. He'd, miss a game here, miss a game there. Obviously, it was something that ailed him all year. But he said he should be good to go by the 2022 campaign. We'd love to see that. Obviously, I'm excited for the 2-headed Niner rushing attack of Tyrion Davis-Price and Elijah Mitchell. So hopefully they can, they can tear it up, especially with Trey Lance back there. We're going to have potentially a 3-headed running attack and Juice. You got the Juice back there too. Potential to be really.
And that's more of a power back there, but obviously he's a.
I mean, he'll.
Back, but,
you give him the ball sometimes, he'll get 8 or 9 yards. He'll just bowl through some people. Yeah, and then obviously, this goes without question. The Niners had picked up the 5th-year option on pass rusher Nick Bosa, which, I mean, that goes without saying. You got to make that move.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any doubt. So that will mean that Bosa will be under contract for at least the next 2 seasons.
Good.
Yeah. So that gives them time to work out a long-term contract. It definitely doesn't seem, because him and Deebo are both due for long-term deals. But Bosa definitely doesn't seem to be as, urging it as pressingly. Like, Bosa knows it's going to get done. Because I think Bosa knows what he means to this team. This team's not going to go out and play football without Nick Bosa. I mean, I think he's, like, at this point, our defensive heart and soul, other than Fred Warner. But, yeah, so then John Lynch was also asked about Deebo after the draft came and went. And Deebo, was still a Niner. No trade happened. And John Lynch said that he doesn't see the Niners trading Deebo Samuel, that he's just too good of a player. And he was quoted as saying, "I can't ever imagine wanting to move on from Deebo. You put yourself through the exercises of, even though we don't have a first-round pick, you have to be thorough in this process and prepare for everything. And as you go through and do that, he's just too good of a player." So it sounds like the Niners kind of did I think they said they fielded some requests. Kyle even said that, but nothing remotely close to what was going to make them jump. Mm-hmm. Probably would have had to be insane, because they only traded A.J. Brown for an 18 and a 101, I think. And Deebo's worth a lot more than that. Maybe call me biased, but I think he's at least worth 2 first-rounders and maybe a 3rd at the very least. But
or maybe a first and a second.
Yeah, something
firsts,
like that.
Man, that sounds like a lot. I agree with you though on how good he is. I feel where you're coming from.
Tyreek got traded for 5 draft picks. I could see Deebo traded for 3.
Yeah, but those were all late round draft picks, weren't they?
No, one was the first. One was like a 3rd and 4th. I don't know. Okay. It was a lot of picks.
That's Tyreek Hill, though. Deebo is good. But
no, I'm not saying that he would net what Tyreek Hill would necessarily, because Tyreek's more of a, an actual receiver. Deebo's a specialty player.
Yeah, he's a Swiss Army knife, and Tyreek is just damn cheetah.
But also, it has the potential to, the way they use him, to get injured more. So that's always something that you've got to factor in as well, because obviously he takes. He took 59 carries out of the backfield, which is by far more than... Cordero Patterson for Atlanta is the only other receiver I think that got used kind of like that. And not with the success that Deebo had.
Yeah, I think he was the only one to have success like that. He was amazing last season. For sure.
So, other news in that, Deebo, and this is relevant, especially in today's game of social media, but Deebo has refollowed the 49ers on Instagram. So it's a great sign. It's a small sign, but it's a great sign. Deebo's happy. I guess they had this thing during the draft where he came out in front of a bunch of Niners fans. It wasn't at the draft, but I think it was probably something in California. But Deebo came out on the stage and everybody was cheering. And they're like, "Deebo, do you have anything to say to the faithful?" And he's like, "I love y'all." And then so it's like, it seems like things are getting better. So good. We just need to give Deebo his money. Let's just get him some money. Get the man what he deserves. Maybe make a compromise with him. Maybe we don't have to use him 60 times a season out of the backfield. Maybe, if we just need a play, maybe we can bust it out. Just the Deebo special, I think is what we were calling it last year. Bust out the Deebo special when you need it. We don't need to use it fucking 15 times a game. Yeah, some of those games late in the season, we were barely throwing to him. He'd have 1 catch and 10 carries.
Yeah.
I was like, we still have Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson. We have running backs. They're good too. They're good running backs. They're just.
I'm just like, no, just keep getting it to Deebo. Just come on, just Deebo.
Why don't you go ahead and throw one for us, Deebo, too? Why don't you go ahead and throw one for us, too? Show us the... Yeah. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what Tyrion Davis-Price can do. I love the name. Another name that I'm excited about.
Same.
But, yeah, we'll see if he goes all Game of Thrones on somebody's ass. And kid runs a 4.40, so more speed. Love the speed. We'll be back next week to bring you guys, anything that happens between now and then, and talk about any roster moves, anything exciting. Obviously, we're getting into that part of the season now where we're going to be starting training camps and OTAs and all of the off-season conditioning programs. So definitely let you know how those position battles are looking and how these rookies look throughout the off-season. But we're now about 3 months away from preseason football, so getting closer.
Getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
And that's going to do it this week for the Extra Point Show. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you're not already, make sure that you like and subscribe and follow us on all of the social media platforms, and check out our other video clips, like the Niners News Update.
And the Commander's Countdown.
That's right. See you next week, everybody.